Hey everybody, how's it going out there? It's been a while, hasn't it, since I put this on. I don't know, man, I was just not in the mood or something, I don't know. Just taking a month hiatus, as it were. I figured if I wasn't ready to do a video, then I wasn't going to do it. But thank you very much for sticking by and waiting for this next video. I'm sure you highly anticipated it. So what is the first thing that we're going to talk about on our way back? Well, what was, the things I've been really busy with, obviously over the past month, is updating a thing that I've made a few videos on about here, and I'm going to make another one in mid-May, about conventions closing due to a situation. Everybody mostly knows what that situation is, and everybody on YouTube plays tongue-in-cheek with that situation because they're worried about their monetization and stuff like that. But since I don't get paid for this because I don't have enough subscribers, I could say it outright. COVID-19, coronavirus, the nasty, nasty bug. Okay? So, yeah, that thing is going about and it's causing great havoc. These things. Since I made my last closure video, a bunch of summer conventions have started to close up. When I made my last video, ones in May were closed up. Now we're starting to see some of the big ones start to fall. And Anthrocon was one of the biggest ones that made the announcement. And a lot of other ones followed up pretty soon thereafter. I'll make an official update video in mid-May. With those updates for the next things, because the next thing was in June, right? It was early June was the next thing that wasn't impacted at the time I had made the last video about a week ago. So I'm just gonna make those updates periodically as they need to be made. But you can go to flera.com to find out local closings as they come. So if there's conventions coming up that you don't know whether or not it's still going or not, that'll be in at flera.com is that article. It's pinned to the very top, so if you go to flera.com, it'll be the very top article. It'll be pinned until this whole situation dies down, which at this point we don't know when that's going to be. Probably 2021 or some such like that. A lot of conventions in 2020 are going to get impacted. The one more interesting thing about Anthrocon is that I keep track of convention attendance rates, and this year was supposed to be the year that Anthrocon was supposed to get over 5 digits. Supposed to hit their 10K this year, but they didn't even get a single digit this year because they had to cancel because of COVID-19. So it just goes to show you can keep track of statistics and numbers all you want, but sometimes things have other plans, and it doesn't matter how accurate I think my statistics are, sometimes life just happens. That being said, so another article that I've been kind of trying to spend some focus on is an article about virtual conventions. And that's sort of what today's topic and video is going to be about for the most part, now that we're 3 minutes into the video. But you come here to hear me ramble, so that's what I'm doing. Basically the whole idea is that as physical conventions start to close up due to social distancing needing to be enacted due to the spread of this viral virus, we're seeing that a lot of furries are coming back to their roots. I wrote an article at flera.com that talked about how the fandom of today looks a lot like the fandom from what I recall from the early 2000s and the 90s, where meets and conventions and gatherings, of people with this interest were not very common. And a lot of the times the way you met with people in the furry fandom was through the internet. And back then it was dial-up, so you really had text-style conversations. You didn't really have these Second Lives or these things, or virtual chat and VR, which is sort of the bigger new thing. It's sort of It's sort of like you had tapestries and text chats, or mucks as they called them, back in the day when you could only interact with text. And then you have, Second Life, which is like sort of a mixture. It's like an avatar with a chat room and stuff like that. You can animate your avatar, so there's a visual aspect to it. But at the same time, there's still the text background to it. You can still RP and interact with people in that way. VR chat's sort of another extension of that, where it's gone, mostly to the visual and things like that. At least from my understanding, like VR chat probably has some text things, but if you're in VR chat, your interactions are not going to be textual as much as it is. So it's sort of like this weird evolution of, you have mucks, which are completely text-based, which, deal with using your imagination and a lot of reading and a lot of sort of that sort of interaction. Second Life, which you can do either way, right? Where you can RP and text chat really well, but at the same time there's a visual component. Some people like the visual component, some people like that. And then you have the VR chat, which is almost completely, the visual component. The thing that you have to understand about VR chat, I don't have a VR headset. I know Second Life. I've done mucks. The issue here is that the thing that you have to know is that a lot of these virtual convention spaces have been trying to take advantage of VR chat. Not everyone has a VR headset, obviously, but you have to note that you can actually go onto VR chat without a VR headset. There is a Windows application version of it. It's sort of, people who have utilized it, I've tried it myself for a few hours. I haven't really interacted with a lot of people in it. I haven't gotten beyond like an hour into it with like just a standard thing. You have to understand that basically with VR chat, using the mouse and keyboard is only going to get you so far. The way you interact with things is kind of tapered. It is very much designed with VR kind of implements in mind. So you're certainly not going to get as much out of it as someone with that equipment. That being said, there are a lot of other ways that you can interact online. YouTube, Twitch, Pictaro, like various different streaming services and things like that. A lot of artists use streaming services in order to stream their artwork and their work to their clients as they make their work, as they fill out their commissions. I know Flinters Rue does that a lot, so do a lot of many other artists. So using that virtual space, furries are, coming together and trying to kind of go back to the old ways in which we interacted, and which is mostly online. That being said, there is something that I have to make, and this is sort of the third part here, and that is I do have sort of a critique. Because I wanted to put together a list of these particular convention spaces so that people can, who are interested in engaging in this sort of thing, particularly artists who want to sell their wares, having a good weekend to do it, using a gathering in order to do it. Anything such as that. I really noticed something, and that is that there's sort of like the curve of this. And what I'm saying is that virtual conventions need to practice social distancing, which may seem counterintuitive and is the title of this video, so I'll probably put a link in the description to point to this time of the video, so that people could skip the rambling. But this is why, why do virtual conventions need to practice social distancing? Well, the reality is that when you have a physical convention, right? The thing is, like, if you want to bring the experience of a physical convention into the virtual world, it has to have physicality. And what I mean by that is it has to feel present. And what I mean by that is that it has to have a start date, it has to have an end date. It has to have physicality. It has to take up a swath of time. And in that time, people have to feel like they should be there, and that it's only going to happen during those periods, and that if they're not there, they're not going to they're not going to have another chance to do it. Furry Omegle is a thing that's been happening every week. That's sort of a weekly thing, but furries can video chat whenever, really. They don't really need to use Furry Omegle to do it. I might participate with that in some time in the future, because I think it's something that would be interesting to do. Is to do a Furry Omegle chat with fursuit, just talk with people. That'd be kind of a cool thing to do, I think. And that's sort of like a zoo experience, like you get to meet new people. So Furry Omegle is definitely like the concept of using Omegle to meet other furries, and sort of like this, roundabout way is a very interesting way to kind of to make a zoo-like experience. So that's sort of the zoo kind of style thing. But you gotta like dealer's den. You have to have artists involved who are going to sell their wares on your weekend. You have to have dancers and things like that involved. I'm very interested to see how Furry Weekend Atlanta, when they do their streaming thing, handles it, because I think that they're looking like they're going to be the best one right now, as far as like doing it what they need to do and having the things in place and having the networking down. Because that's what I mean by physicality. You have to have people on board who are going to draw attention to it. It's like, yeah, this is a big deal. This is a big event that's happening. Because it's one thing to be just a thing on a list and trying to put the effort into it, making a nice website. There's another thing of being physicality to it. And when you have that physicality, as a convention does, then you start impacting and influencing things. Because the thing about physicality is that as we've seen conventions start to open and close and postpone things, one of the biggest interesting things that had happened is Biggest Little Fur Con had to move its convention, from May into October. And an interesting thing happened when Biggest Little Fur Con did that. PawCon, which is another area, West Coast convention, is not like a big fur convention. It's kind of a smaller gathering. But Biggest Little Fur Con is the third largest in the world. It was supposed to be in competition with Furry Weekend Atlanta, and this year might have been the year that Furry Weekend Atlanta took third slot. But of course, I can't predict that anymore. My numbers are useless. So who knows what will happen? Because like Furry Weekend Atlanta is going to be online only, and Biggest Little Fur Con could either be canceled entirely if the second wave of coronavirus does happen. I said the word. He said the word. He's gonna get demonetized. I don't care. I'm not monetized anyway. Oh, can you take more money from me, Google? Are you gonna take more money from me? How are you gonna do that? But anyways, by the way, kick that like button for the YouTube algorithm. No, screw the YouTube algorithm. Don't care. Here's the thing. We don't know whether or not it's going to happen. If the second wave happens, Biggest Little Fur Con might move. But one of the most interesting things that happened is another West Coast furry convention, PawCon, moved its convention not further away like most are, but closer. They moved it from October to August, mostly in response to what Biggest Little Fur Con did. Because Biggest Little Fur Con has a lot of physicality. And the reason that major conventions and physical conventions have that physicality is because they are forced to rent a space. Like, people come together in a physical space, they have to rent that space, they have to do things with that space, and people do things in that space. So it feels like that space is there, it feels like there's a limited time for it, and there's a feel, it just feels like it's there, and it's a physical thing, and if you can't really move it and just do away with it. So what the virtual conventions have to do is they have to make things feel that way, and right now they don't. It feels like what it feels like is that a bunch of people are just holding a bunch of streaming things over the weekend, which they could do before conventions were gone, and it doesn't really do anything. And the reason is because they're not really practicing social distancing either. And what I mean by that is that there's a curve, and if you look at this thing here, okay, this is my exhibit here. So this is a picture from the thing when I got together this list. I was wanting to put together these virtual convention lists for multiple reasons. One of the biggest reasons is because I wanted to keep track of when these things were happening, so that I could attend one if I wanted to, or figure out like if I was in the mood on the weekend is to try and see if I can attend one of these things. But also for another reason, and that is if somebody else was interested in running a virtual furry convention. Let's say I was interested in running a virtual furry convention, I would be able to see by my list what weekends are free, what time spaces are free to make such a gathering, right? To make such a thing of interest. So it's useful for both people who want to create these virtual conventions and people who want to partake in them. It also showed me this curve that I'm talking about. If you're perusing and reading at the thing on the screen right now, if you're reading those things, what you're going to see is that this is an order of date, and this quote-unquote upcoming gatherings has some of the stuff from last weekend, which I'm going to be moving to the previously held convention things. What you're going to notice is that they had this down-home fur con that took place on the first weekend of May 1st, right? Started May 1st. You have the second one here, which took place for Pacific Northwest, took place from May 3rd. You know, it's taking place from May 3rd to May 9th, and Virtual Furry Con is taking place from May 1st to the 3rd, and then you got Cozy Con, which is May 2nd to May 3rd. You notice that, and by the way, this upcoming thing here, this was the whole list I had at the time. There were four virtual furry conventions or virtual gatherings that were, targeting a furry audience on the first weekend of May, which is what we mean by flatten the curve, guys. Spread it out. We've got some time, okay? If you were interested in making a virtual convention, try to do your best. The first thing you should do is try to do your best to find a weekend that is not currently taken up by something else. Also try to figure out where the hosting person is. Like maybe you can have two different conventions that are hosted in two different time zones and and can cater to that kind of things. We're a global community, so those kind of things can come into play. But the reality is that if you have 4 virtual conventions running on the same weekend, it's going to have the same impact as if you had 4 furry conventions running on the same weekend in the same town, right? You go to the same place to go to these things, but now you're kind of spread thin, right? Your attention is spread thin. So you want to try to make it feel physical. You want to have that physicality. You want to have it so that the convention that you're running, the virtual convention that you're running, feels like an event that you don't want to miss. And it makes it feel like other virtual conventions, if they're looking at your weekend, they back off because they're like, whoa, okay, this thing looks legit, right? Which is why I think that furry the weekend at home, the furry weekend at home instead of Atlanta, I think that one is actually pretty safe because a lot of people know that Furry Weekend Atlanta was happening. It's the 4th largest furry convention in the world, so they knew that they were running that virtual thing. So, and they grabbed onto that pretty quick. They're like, okay, we're going to run it virtual. So I think that right now it's the most, it has the most physicality of the virtual conventions that are going. So just in the thing. So I'm going to have a link in the description below to that list. If you know of any virtual conventions, feel free to leave a comment with a list of the virtual conventions that you are aware of. we will take a look at it, and if it looks like it's legit, we'll publish. There are certain ones that, you know, if they're like, there was like a handful that were like, oh, this Bajira and Boozy said that they were going to run this one, and it's like, it pointed to like a Discord thing. Like, Picari did a very good video about virtual conventions up here, and I'll put that in the cards up there. And a good chunk of the things actually came from her video, so I thank her for doing that. Some of the ones she mentioned I didn't put on there, and those were mostly the ones that were Discord chat related, because a Discord chat room is not a convention. There was like 2 examples of this, but a Discord chat room is not a convention. A Discord chat room is a Discord chat room. A chat room is a chat room, right? It has to have a physical start date. It has to have a physical end date. It should have convention-like activities and things. It should have panels of some description. It should have artists who are commissioning wares in some capacity under the banner. It should have some sort of performances, maybe. It should be a way for us to catalog things and have things in an active time. I think that would be the best way to do it. Well, I throw my hat in the ring. I mean, if there's anything, it takes the least amount of effort, right? Yeah. No. See, that's the whole. Now you're doing it wrong. Where it's like, yeah, I could do a thing like this, and it'll be so simple because it's just a virtual one. Who cares? It doesn't really count. I don't have to worry about making hotels or convention spaces happy. That's simple, man. It's. I mean, if you're gonna do something, it might. I mean, you couldn't do worse than 2 with Anthrea, right? I mean, there's so many other conventions that have failed. You think you're so good at it, why don't you do it yourself? See, that's the trap, man. That's the trap. I'm well aware of that. So I guess that was sort of my rambling for this particular thing. Just as the big takeaway is that we have plenty of time. We have a lot of time, and unfortunately not a lot of conventions. If we are going to be doing online conventions, we should try to do what we can to emulate the look and feel of an actual convention. If we use virtual spaces to do it, that's fine. Don't fully rely on it unless your convention wants to fully rely on it. If your convention wants to fully rely on it, we have to understand though that VR chat has its limitations. It has a limited capacity on how many people can share a server at the same time. Second Life also kind of has those limitations. Only like VR chat's actually a lot, has a smaller cap as far as I'm aware. So those are like limitations you have to kind of work around. But how can you use the omnibus of the internet? Like, how can you use streaming services and YouTubes and different content providers and things like that to make the most out of the experience for the people who are looking for those experiences? Do you stream your do you stream your panels to channels? How do you do the whole dealer's den thing? How do you get that all in making it put in all one place? These are logistical challenges, and I think over the coming months, furries will do well in figuring out those logistical challenges in order to make the internet community that they utilize work even better for their community. And maybe, just maybe, some crazy person out there will actually put together a virtual furry convention that makes a furry go, you know what, I'm coming to this every year, even when we open back convention spaces. This is my kind of hangout. This is my kind of thing. Because if you can do that, if you can make it so that person's like, I didn't have to get on a plane, I didn't have to get on a train, I didn't have to go here or there, I didn't have to go anywhere, and I love this convention anyway. Take that, Samuel Conway. No, I'm just kidding. What are you talking about? Every kind's the best experience you ever have. I don't care what you say. Stupid rude. I had to make it rhyme. I'm sorry. I was going for the frickin' green eggs and ham thing, and then it's like, I've got to make it rhyme with somebody, and it's like, okay, my mind went there. I'm just gonna go and do it. But anyways, improv's great. Anyways, thank you guys very much for watching. Kick that like, not for the algorithm's sake, but for your own sake. Kick that like, because I don't care what the algorithm says. Kick that like for you, not for it. Not for it. Kick a comment in the comment section. Kick the subscribe button and the bell if you want to be alerted to new videos. As far as commenting goes, what do you think about virtual conventions? Have you ever attended one? Is there any virtual hangouts that you really enjoy online? I'd like to hear your thoughts on it. And what do you think? What would you look forward to in a virtual furry convention? What thing would you like to see the most? Anyways, I'll see you guys next time when I do another video. Thank you very much for watching, as always. And we will see you again next week, hopefully, if I don't stop being lazy. And I will stop being lazy, and I'll make more videos for you. Because you're worth it, baby. You're worth it. You're worth it. All you're worth it. You should be worth it. All right. Have a good one, guys.